MorningLine, thanks for joining us, talking voter registration and early voting. Listen, a lot of you watching may have moved into this wonderful city in just the past few months, and if you have, you know, that means you need to register to vote, even if you were registered someplace else. That's the point. And you want to be involved in this big election coming up. You have until October 11th to do so. Jeff Roberts and Joan Nixon are with us here from the County Election Commission. Thanks for coming on.
Sure.
And we can take some calls if you have some basic questions. I know many of you know this stuff already, but we thought it was important to do this show this morning. By the way, I was thinking, when you do go to vote and you wait in your line, you go through the process and you go up to the machine, who's allowed back there with you? I see, certainly I've gone before where I brought my young child with me, and he was able to witness it. Can a couple go back there together? Can you go back with anyone? Can grandma bring her son if she's having trouble seeing? I don't know. I mean,
a voter can request assistance in casting their ballot, and so that is going to be discussed when they first are asked for their information to confirm it, and that's when the voter will say, I need Nick to help me cast my ballot.
Okay.
And so there is an assistance form that the voter fills out, and then you would be able to assist the voter in casting their ballot.
Okay, so you have to mention it and do it. You can't just get in line and as you walk back there, walk back with someone.
No.
So you're supposed to be by yourself, except in the exception, obviously, of an underage child that was. That's it. That's the only exception, as far as you know, then, huh?
And of course, poll watchers. Poll watchers can observe any of the processes except for how a voter votes. They can be back. They can look at the back of the machine if they wanted to.
Okay.
Poll watcher.
Poll watcher.
And we don't appoint poll watchers. A candidate does. A party does. And an organization does.
What are they there for, you think?
They're just there to make sure that we are doing our jobs.
That there's not a poll worker that's maybe advocating for a candidate
and
or something?
If a voter, making sure that the voter gets processed properly. If they see something that doesn't look right to them, they are instructed to go to the officer of election to kind of see what the issue is and then resolve it.
There's always a few, snafus you hear from poll watchers every year. They're upset about something.
But you can't just walk in and say, I'm a poll watcher.
Right, you have to be credentialed.
Credentialed to be a poll watcher. And you'll have a sign, name badge on that says I'm a poll watcher.
And it's oftentimes, they're affiliated with some candidate or some kind of measure or something along those lines.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, I understand how that works. The poll watchers, the training that you have for the poll workers, all part of this process. Security still, there are people out there that still have suspicions or concerns about the integrity of the voting machines as they've changed over time and gone electronic. So the ones that we're using in Metro, not every county uses the same exact one. It's not uniform across the state. It would be nice if at some point it was, wouldn't it? They found the very best and everyone in the state used the same system?
Well, they all have to be certified by the state.
Okay, so they're all certified. That's a good point. That's a good point.
Right.
So what kind of machines are we using in Metro, and how do we know that, because they're electronic, someone couldn't hack into it?
Well, we're using, it's called an iVotronic machine from a company called ES&S. They're an approved, certified company by the state. And one of the things that prevents the hacking, these machines are never connected to the internet.
They're not wired into anything. They're independent.
They're independent machines, and our staff do all the programming. They put the ballots on there, those type of things. They're in a secure location with alarms and such. It's a nondescript kind of location. All the machines are stored there. Each machine in the building has a specific spot that it sits in the building. So
you know where all of them are.
Every machine, we know where every machine is, where it's supposed to be. When it leaves the building, each machine goes to a specific location.
We're talking hundreds of machines here, right?
Yes.
And you know
multiple
where all of them are.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. I would expect that. And then
that's a comfort for the voter.
Okay, and I guess the process is it's independent of the internet, of course.
Right.
So when it's electronically, entered, the vote, it then is downloaded within that individual machine into a flash drive or something like that, and it's attached in the back.
Right.
And at the end of the day, you remove those and secure them, and I don't know, send them off to be counted. They're plugged into another computer.
The poll officer at the end of the election night will bring all of those storage devices to our office, and that's where the tabulation will occur.
Okay.
But before that, when they open the polls up in the morning, the poll official will check and make sure there are 0 votes on that machine, and they'll run a printout that shows there are 0 votes. They'll maintain that printout, and then at the end of the night, they'll run a printout to show how many votes are on there. and post that so that news organizations
Can
can
get
see
the
those.
information.
You will have that before we have
Right.
the actual storage device where we actually do the audit and make sure that the numbers are correct. So
Yeah.
you will have the numbers earlier than we do.
Okay,
Right.
those initial ones come out. When
Yes.
you do the audit, by the way, how does that work? When you see the early numbers that we all report, the media does, and we'll be doing that, of course, on election night, wall to wall, and you get some of the early returns. Are they double checked after the initial count is done? How many times are they counted, or how does that work? I'm just behind the scenes. You plug it in, it downloads, and it says this precinct, there's 1,000 for this candidate, 1,000 for this candidate, and it goes into the process. I mean, I don't know how else you check that again. I mean, you can run it one more time and see if it comes back 1,000 for both. Is that how that works? I just want to know the nuts and bolts. I've never been in there to see it.
A simple description of how to work. I mean, you're looking for making sure it had 0 votes to begin with.
Yeah.
There are the tabulation of the votes, and then we got, if you remember, when you go in and that registrar gives you a slip of paper to take over to the machine operator, all of those slips of paper are collected.
Okay.
So we've got
have
also
the
a
numbers.
kind of a manual
Yeah, it's just a
count
manual.
Like
of
a
how many are
backup,
voted.
just in case.
It's a backup.
Yes.
So that's how we're doing that audit to make sure the numbers are coming out correct.
The worst case scenario would be one of those flash drives or whatever it is freezes up and doesn't work.
And yes.
And there's
then
a backup.
to that.
There is. I was about to
Yes.
ask you. There's even because sometimes there's just
Right.
a
Right.
technical
That's right. You just
snafu,
can't read
and one of
the
those you pull it
cartridge.
out and it's not reading it.
Right.
Right.
There's a
That's
backup.
Yes,
Yeah.
there's a backup.
2 flash drives.
There is a, you can get a paper, we can print it off, whatever it was on the machine, or there is a,
Good. This is good.
yeah, so there are a lot of things in place to help when that
Right.
situation
and
happens.
I think the state, when it certifies, it's looking for those types of checks and balances to make sure, just like you mentioned, if something failed,
Right.
what's the backup?
Right.
Does it frustrate you sometimes when you still hear people have concerns about the integrity of the machines? I mean, what you just described to me, and then you both, I have full faith in what you're telling me, but there's still sometimes folks out there that, I don't know, conspiracy theorists or others that just doubt whether or not it's really fair.
Right.
You know,
and
I only
you
started in
do
the
what you do.
position in June, so I had the same concerns. But when the staff walked me through the whole process, and I saw exactly what went into making an election fair for everyone,
You convinced you?
I'm convinced that it's a good process.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Taylor. Hi, Taylor. Good morning.
Good morning, Nick, and good morning to your guests. They perform an excellent job in Davidson County, and both they and the state registrar of elections have good websites and a lot of information. I want to say I really appreciate Tennessee's early voting. I think it's enough days to work out just fine, and I always use it. And of course, the last day of early voting can be about as
Yeah, you're right.
election
You're right about
day.
that,
That's
Taylor.
right.
One thing, I understand how it works, but after I hang up, if they want to talk about provisional ballots, I think that's an excellent idea in a lot of or instances from time to time. But I'd like to know, how do we stop these pesky dead people from voting? Of course, a lot of them continue to get Social Security in 20 years after they die. Is there any cross-references that takes place? Because that's where, across the country, there's probably as much fraud as any particular one spot. So anything you have to say on that, I'd appreciate hearing. And thanks for the show, and good luck in the upcoming election.
Thank you, Taylor. Appreciate that. The dead people voting and how they go about doing it. I don't know if we want to tell people how you can do it, but someone passes away and they're still on the registration as a voter, and
Right.
someone, I guess you would have to have an ID and use their name, right? But you're not
Right.
going to look like the. But does that happen still?
We have processes in place to update any deceased voter. If we have to make a voter deceased, our staff go to the old newspaper, look at the obituaries, and they see if this person is registered. We know that we can decease them per that. We can decease a voter from a relative. If a relative finds out that we still have the voter on file, the relative can write us a little note and we can take that person off. But that's kept up daily. So we don't have that problem as a deceased voter voting because it's checked.
It's checked. And even if it wasn't, wouldn't it be difficult to do anyway? I mean, you would have to have an ID.
An ID.
And you would, and assume they're looking at the ID and they're looking at the photo and they're looking at you. And they're like, well, this isn't you.
You don't look like you're 90.
Right. I'm just wondering. And I hear Taylor say that, and you go back to the days of Mayor Daley and Chicago and the rumors of all the dead people voting, but that was then.
Right.
The security in place now. Maybe we just had the paper card like, Brian was saying a few years back before 2012.
Yes.
Maybe you could have pulled that off without a photo ID.
That's right.
And we do receive a report from the state on a regular basis that identifies all of the people reported to the State Department of Health who have
passed
died.
away.
Yes.
So you have that report.
You
right?
have that.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of different ways we get that information.
Gotcha. All right, let's go to Deborah. Good morning, Deborah.
Hi, good morning.
Hi.
Well, I have a question. I moved recently, and I moved out of the county, and I received a postcard that said, fill out and return this attached card so that we may remove your name from our registration records. I'm reading it. I have it in front of me.
Okay.
And then in bold print, it says, if you do not return this card within 30 days, and that comes across kind of as a threat, you may have to vote by provisional ballot in upcoming elections, and your registration will be canceled if you do not vote or update your registration before 2 federal general elections. Now, that comes across as a threat that your voting rights will be infringed upon if you don't notify your old voting location. And people make the assumption that when they update or re-register in another county, that old location will be notified in some shape or form.
I was wondering what if she didn't get that card and didn't do this, and she's moved and they weren't able to track her. I mean, I hear what she's saying. Are you familiar with what she's talking about?
No, I don't know what document that she's referring to. I would need to see it to be able to see what the issue is. But if a voter will if they move to another county, then when they register in that new county within the state of Tennessee, we have a way of making sure that they're not registered to vote in 2 counties.
Okay. So if she goes ahead and registers in her new county, then she shouldn't have to worry about that, I guess.
No.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a way for us, too, to make sure we're, and like Joan said, I'm not sure of the documentation, but it could be that we're trying to confirm you have moved. We've received notice from your other county confirming you have moved. If we don't hear from you, we're going to remove you from the Davidson County rolls.
I see. Okay. All right. Would you remind folks, what does provisional ballots mean? She's talking about in this case, and we had to call
provisional
it earlier,
ballots
Taylor.
are for those individuals who thought that they had registered, for example, the Department of Safety. They registered to vote by the 30th cutoff deadline, and the county doesn't have any record of that.
Meaning
form.
like they registered to vote when they went to get their driver's license.
Right,
Okay.
right. And so the voter will be offered a provisional ballot.
Which means it's temporary?
Well, do the provisional ballot. We'll have the voter do that, and then our provisional counting board will determine, based on the investigation that we will be doing, to see if that ballot, see if I really checked yes. If I checked no when I got my driver's license, of course the ballot won't count.
Yeah.
But if it was found out that I did check yes, then that ballot would count. The voter would get registered. Therefore, they will not be. They won't have to worry about doing provisional voting anymore.
Essentially, it's a way that even if there's an issue on election day, you can come in. We can vote you provisional. It puts the burden on us to do some research. Then maybe that file from the Department of Safety didn't reach us. They registered on the 10th or got their driver's license on the 10th. We didn't get it till the 12th, and
so you've got their vote, and you're doing the investigation.
Right.
You're holding the vote before sending it into the pool until the provisional ballot's certified.
That's right.
I see. And it's interesting, that whole motor voter thing. And you know,
Yes.
when some people, maybe, who knows, they don't check, yes, I want to register, they check no, and they still show up. And if
Right.
it says they checked no, which may have been an honest mistake if they're showing up to vote, that's on you. You got to pay
That's
attention to
right.
what the
That's
heck you
right.
checked, right?
Right. That's
Well,
right.
same thing on the ID. You forget your ID.
Yeah,
We'll
you
let
can
you vote provisional.
provisionally.
You have 2 days to come into our office and show your ID. Then your provisional ballot will count.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because there may
Yes.
be someone, oh, darn, I forgot my
forgot.
wallet. This is my only
Wow.
shot. They'll still let you vote. You just have to come back in to reserve, but they'll hold your vote from that day.
Yes.
Glad you
Right.
mentioned that. Let's take a break on that note when we come back. More of your phone calls with our fine guests in our final segment right after this.